Yeah, you read that title right. In 2020, I quit my job to travel the world. Not just like in 2020, but I put my notice in January, and my last day of work was the day after the World Health Organization declared the pandemic. Now, I could have chosen to keep my job and all the things, but I had my heart set on traveling the world, and none of us knew what it would be like and how long the pandemic would last. So I went ahead with it. And in April of 2020, I sold my house and started making plans to travel. Now, for those of you who've been following along, you know that I've ended up here in my van, but it took me a long time to make this decision and make this happen. Instead, I spent all of last year just kind of wandering around. I took a long trip to the Smoky Mountains. I attempted the Colorado Trail that led to a road trip around Colorado to see all of their national parks, and I just kind of bounced around the rest of the year. When I looked at 2021 and I was trying to decide what to do, I wanted it to be a more focused goal. I picked traveling to all of the national parks in the continental US. Now I'm halfway through that goal and I realize that we haven't talked about it very much. Today I need to do some repairs on my van. I'm gonna take the chance to tell you about it. Since I've been traveling and driving so much, some of the plumbing pieces have actually wiggled loose, so I need to tighten the drain and tighten my faucet. I think from that story, a lot of people would question why you didn't stay, knowing that there really was a pandemic. And I think the big thing is I had been planning to do this since 2018. I'm certainly not going to spend this time telling you that you need to quit your job to travel, and I actually wouldn't encourage it. And that's because I did a lot of planning beforehand. I really did have a job before this. I was there for 6 years before I quit to start traveling. And for a few of them, they were the most unhealthy years of my life. I would go to work, get takeout, come home, watch Netflix, and get ready to go to work the next day. Somewhere in those first 3 years of my job, I realized that I wanted more. That's kind of when I started watching YouTube and I saw people traveling, and I wanted to travel more too. Instead of quitting right then when I didn't have the money to do it, I started saving and planning trips. I got to go a lot of places. But eventually I decided that my 2 weeks vacation every year was never going to be enough. Oh, wait, do I not know how to use a command hook? You see, once I started planning small trips, I realized that I really did enjoy traveling. Not surprisingly, after doing all of my research and going on small trips, I started to wonder if I could travel full time. And I planned this trip in 2018 to really try it out. I went to New York City. I ended up getting tickets to the US Open, traveled to Vermont and New Hampshire to hike, and made it all the way back home. And by the end of it, I realized I could travel. And once I knew I could, how do you convince yourself not to? You know, I finished the van in April, and since then I've been able to go to 32 national parks. And the best thing is it never matters what day of the week it is. I can always go for a hike, climb a mountain, go in a cave, kayak, and not worry about being on a schedule. I'm certainly not going to lie to you about how great those things are. All those stone roads, everything just wiggles loose. And you know, when you travel full time, it really does work out that you get to see a lot of places. I've already made it to 43 states this year alone, and while Alaska and Hawaii are still up in the air, I will at least be at 48 by the end of the year. bought a carbon monoxide detector right when I finished building the van, and I obviously have never installed it. So that's happening today. I just don't know where I want it. Seems good. Carbon monoxide, so it should be low. I wonder if I can put it on the toe kick. I think that'll work, but I'm going to read the instructions to make sure it's not too low. Trusty command strips, just in case we need to move it. Definitely don't take this as serious safety advice. We'll see how it goes. Another thing I have to do before I go is rotate my tires. The front tires are rugged just from all of the turns. And the back tires are actually showing quite a bit of wear. Especially when you look at the spare tire underneath. You can definitely see the wear of the 22,000 miles I put on the van. I mean, you can probably tell, but I'm still so happy that I decided to convert the van and travel to all the national parks. Now, this didn't happen slowly. Like I said, in 2018, I started to travel, and somehow, after I realized that I could travel, that if I chose not to, someday I would regret not doing it. Now, I've been on the road for about 6 months, and I do want to say that not everything is as great as it might look. Like, the Instagram effect is definitely real, but problems don't just automatically go away. I have to convince myself on a regular basis not to worry about things that I would have worried about in any other day of my life. The water started to soak through the polyurethane here at the edge of the sink, so I'm gonna reseal it. You know, I still stress out even about traveling, like if I don't go fast enough or slow enough or to enough places or to cool places. So it's not like everything is just stress-free all of a sudden. On top of that, things still go wrong. Like at Glacier, I had to get a timed entry, so I thought about changing my plans. At Lassen, there were wildfires. Things just happen. Sometimes I get tired, and I just want to take an extra day and relax in town. And one thing that I learned last year when I was just wandering around is that you have to have a plan. You have to have confidence in your plan, and you have to stick with it. Even when people say it's hard, you have to give it a shot for yourself. It's certainly not all bad, but it's also good to know that your problems aren't going to disappear just by quitting your job. I have that one last thing to fix, but I don't have the glue here to do it, so it will have to wait. Just another way to practice going with the flow. One other hard thing to talk about is that you just need to start making even the smallest changes now. Especially with traveling, so many people have shared stories about missing out on opportunities because they waited far too long. And then a lot of people are just excited because I'm traveling while I'm young. And it's true. Just because I'm traveling when I'm young, I get to do a lot of things that I probably would convince myself to skip when I'm older. One of the hardest things was definitely telling people that I wanted to travel. So whatever you've been wanting to do, leave a comment. This has become an amazing community where I've met people committed to hiking and kayaking and traveling. And even if your goal isn't travel, let us know and you can start getting support from people around you. If it is traveling, start planning trips. And if you can't go right now, just subscribe. After I get all of this wrapped up, I'm headed out on a loop to 20 national parks. Hopefully, I'll see you at the next one.